Hello everyone, welcome to Chill Deal Trades, where I analyze the market so you know what's going on. Today we're going to be covering the indexes, so the SPY, the QQQ, and the IWM, which is the S&P 500, Nasdaq, and the Russell 2000. We're going to kind of see what's going on with these. We know we've had a little bit of a pullback, kind of the second half of last week, and so we're just going to kind of analyze where the price could be headed. If you're here and you haven't hit the sub button yet, please hit that. We're about a month and a half in, and we're almost at 250 subs. The goal is to get to 500 as quick as possible. So join the squad and the community. When you like it, more people find the videos, and the community grows. So I appreciate everyone for the support so far. But let's get into it. The first thing I want to say is, for the past 3 weeks, I've been telling you guys, be cautious. Be cautious. The market's getting overbought. When your favorite YouTubers out there were telling you to buy PLTR and NNDM and SoFi, I was telling you, be cautious. It's probably going lower. There's a high probability, and look what's been happening. And so now you're starting to see the more big names sell off because basically all of them are being overbought. I made a video on Google a couple weeks ago showing how overbought it was, and that was telling us that a market top was coming in. That was just before the peak. I made a video about a month or two weeks ago saying that about a 6% to 10% correction was coming to get you guys prepared. And I basically nailed the top in that video. I told you where the peak was and we were $1 off. So guys, I know what I'm doing here. I'm here to help you out, here to help you save money and make money in the market. And that's what I hope we can all do together. But first, let's jump into the QQQ, which is the Nasdaq. So first thing I want to say is we started seeing some divergence. So RSI, get me a handy dandy brush out. So we saw RSI going down in its peak, but we saw the price going up. So that's a divergence. So when we start seeing that happen, it's telling us that we are most likely going to see a pullback in the market. How big that pullback and other factors are going to play a part, but we saw that, and that was telling us that we were heading to a peak, a short-term peak. We're also seeing MACD crossover on the daily, which is a very big important sign, because if you look in the past, crossed over, look what happened. Crossed over, look what happened. Back here, crossed over, look what happened. Crossed over, look what happened. So these are indicators that can really tell you where we're starting to hit close to a top. And that's why I told you guys, start looking at the SQQQs, which is a 3-time leverage short. Look at SPXS, 3-time leverage short. These are things that I've been buying. I'm not a financial advisor, but these things are you guys should be looking at. And you could have been making money over the last couple of days, like some of the people in our Discord group has. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet, it's in the description. Join that. We're talking about all the stuff that's happening in the markets. And I think we're making some good calls in there. So go join that community that we're building. But we're seeing a pullback here on the QQQs. We did break below this trend line, which is a pretty big deal, and I think that's why we got a pretty big acceleration. You know, we were down almost 1%. We tried to break back up to the upside on Friday, but we failed and went back down. So now we have this secondary, you know, when we draw a line from here, we have this secondary trend line coming here. So there's been a lot of news about COVID, D variant. That's a lot of fear spreading. We're technically overbought. So these things kind of, and inflation as well. We had a really high inflation number this week come out, higher than expected. And so all these things, we're seeing both sentiment get negative, so people are getting worried, and we're seeing technically overbought. These things paired together can typically bring a little bit bigger than normal drops in the market. I'm not saying we're getting to a crash. When people say that, that's just, they don't know what's going on and they're just saying that. It's a lot of speculation. But when you mix negative sentiment and technical indicators overbought, we can typically get a little bit more than a 3% pullback in the market. So we're going to want to watch for this trend line being break. And I would say if we see that break, we don't really have a whole lot of support. You can see this range, it basically just went higher. You know, we kind of have a little bit of support here at 354. So if somehow the market can mute itself enough to only pull back 3%, which I would say is more unlikely, but we have earnings coming out, so we don't know the impact that's going to have on the market. But if it can mute itself, this is going to be a point. But if not, we basically had a straight up in this range. So when we see basically no resistance on the downside or support because there's no accumulation, the price can often just drop pretty quickly. And so when we're looking into the future, we do see both the 50-day moving average and our past peak at the same time. So when you look at things on the chart, you often find things that look ironic, like, oh, the 50-day and the past peak are at the same point. That's weird. That's going to be really significant support range, and that's at 342-ish range, I would say. 342 to 345 is probably that kind of range. So that's the first area. If we break below this 355 next week, then that's the range we're going to be looking at. And we zoom out a little bit, we do see back from this really big pullback back in September, when we draw a trend line here, we also see the trend line hitting the support line, and we also have the 50 SMA coming into that range. So those are three big supports. So I'm going to say that's going to be, and I think it's about a 5.5% pullback, which I think was the bottom of my expectation. If we continue to see a lot more negative momentum come into the markets, as I've been saying, watch out for the second half of July, end of July, we'll probably get a pullback in the market. So if we continue to see really big negative sentiment, then the next big support, and let me change this to the 100-day. So we have the 100-day SMA and another big support, as you can see here. This was like a consolidation zone. We bounced off it multiple times, both trying to break below and trying to break above. So we have a trend line again. If we go back to around that September, November time, we see a trend line coming across there. We have the 100-day and we have a support line. So when we're going to be looking for the 342 range, as in a little less downside projection. But if we see a lot of negative momentum and sentiment, then we're looking for the 335-ish range coming into around the late July, early August is what we're going to be looking for the Nasdaq. So those are some things we want to pay attention to. Let's go into the SPY. So we're seeing a lot of similarities here. So again, just like the Nasdaq, we saw RSI showing a lower trend line, but we saw the price going higher. Divergence, we broke. And we've also we're seeing the MACD show some negative momentum. And similar to in the past, when we see those lines cross, that typically is showing some kind of downside in the near future. And that's what we're seeing again. So here we broke below these two short line trend lines, both of them. So we don't have much support there anymore on those trend lines. But when we go back to March of this year, when the market pulled back, we do see that we haven't broke below that trend line yet. So we're going to see it's tested basically, but we're going to see if more negative momentum can head in early this week. There's a lot of negative sentiment, so I definitely think maybe something like this could be happening. So that's something we're going to want to keep an eye on. Again, we have a more muted downturn around this. If we draw a trend line around 428, I'd say if somehow the market the bulls can really take control and keep the market higher, I think it's about a 3% pullback. But we're going to want to look for the past highs of the market. And so that range we're seeing is right here, and that is 425 to 422. So that's going to be if the market can hold up really strong. That's the range we're going to want to look at. But if we continue to see negative momentum come into the market around sentiment, maybe some earnings have negative results. We already saw it with the airlines. Even though they broke profits, they had really large growth, they still had a downturn in the stock. So maybe expecting that also for more names moving forward into earnings. But this range is again important. We have the 50 moving average there, which is about the last all-time highs before we broke above. And so that's going to be a really important range. The secondary range, if we continue to see the market sell off, again, just like the Nasdaq, is the 100-day. So when we move in here below this, basically this whole range into this support area right here, we have the 100-day, which is at about 410. So I'm thinking that the market will probably, this is just my guess, because I think we're going to have more than a 3% pullback, is going to be somewhere between this 415 to 405. This is somewhere the range I think there's a high probability for the market to pull back in over the next few weeks. We haven't really had a big pullback in a while, and with all these overbought readings happening with a lot of negative sentiment, I think we'll get more than a 3% pullback. But you never know in this market. The bulls are really strong. They're holding the markets up pretty substantially. But that's kind of a couple ranges we want to look at. So 422, if we break below that kind of range, then we're probably headed somewhere between 315 and 310, or 415 and 410 to the downside. When we're looking at RSI, typically SPY stays above 41, so we're going to want to keep an eye on to see if this, just like in the past, bounces off that 41 and heads back up to the upside, and this is probably where the bottom would be on the pullback, the little correction in SPY. So similar patterns of the past, we're seeing this start to evolve every time it goes to 41, and so that's what I'll be keeping an eye on for the RSI. The last I want to look at is the IWM. So IWM has basically been consolidating since January, or we saw the move into February where we saw the all-time highs for a lot of the small names, and a lot of them have been pulling back and some have been going sideways, and so we're starting to see some significant negative momentum come in. So when we look at RSI, that's the right one. Yeah, it's the brush. We've kind of been hovering sideways around this 50, which when we see it kind of go back and forth between 50, the market's undecided, but we're starting to see some negative momentum to the downside. So I say this in every video, but RSI tells you two things. It can tell you when there might be a potential pop in the market, when something's showing oversold, but it also tells you momentum. So if we see moving forward that the RSI is staying below this 50, and doing something like this back and forth, then we're showing a lot of negative momentum in the smaller cap names, which is the Russell 2000. And we really think about, there's a lot of negative momentums for this sector. I say this in almost every video I've been making on PLTR, NNDM, all those kind of names, is inflation's high, which is bad for tech. It makes it really expensive for tech to develop. We're having fears about tapering, about interest rates increased. All these sentiments that are starting to go on and all this fear and worry, small cap names are going to have the biggest impact because they flourish in a low interest environment. They flourish when the government is spending a lot of money on QE, the Fed. And so those are things that we're going to have to continue to look at to see how much downturn we have. When we look at MACD, we also see it going below zero, which is a very important sign. And we're seeing this blue line accelerate to the downside. And the last time we saw it accelerate that much was back at this peak where we came from here into support. And so that's what I'm going to be looking at to see if we can hold this support range. If SPY and Nasdaq continue to break down, we're also going to see the IWM break down more. You know, we're testing pretty significant support right now on this kind of uptrend from the consolidation zone. And so if we break below that, I'm going to look for the 200-day test, as well as big support around 205 to 208. But if we see continuous negative momentum, then we could definitely move back into this 190 to 200 range. So those are things you want to keep an eye on. And if we see weakness here, then the PLTRs, the NNDMs, the SoFis, the PaySafes, all the names I've been making videos on that I've been telling you guys to wait. I've been telling you guys to wait on these names. All these other YouTubers are telling you to buy the dip, buy the dip. I've been telling you guys to wait. The market was looking weak. You need to wait, buy at a lower price. And that's what I've been doing. And that's why my portfolio has been green the last week. And other people have been feeling a lot of pain over the last 2 months. So let's grow this community because I want to get this knowledge out to more people. And, you know, share it with your friends, share it with your family. Like, I want this channel to be a resource where we can all learn and grow and hopefully make money in the markets. But that's all I'm going to cover today in this video. Again, if you made it this far, you guys are the real ones for watching my entire videos. I really appreciate the support. So thank you so much. And lastly, I'll be on Twitch tonight. If you're watching this video tonight, at twitch.com/StockTalkGame. Me and my buddy have a Twitch channel. We're on Saturday nights. We talk about overall markets and news and how we think the markets are looking. And then Sunday nights, I do a live stream where I'm charting, just like I do in the videos. So come join that. It's at 7 p.m. West Coast time. So hopefully I see you there. But I'll be making a video tomorrow because I make a video every day except for weekends. So I'll see you guys then.